this episode, we're going to deal with mixing Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian chords. If you haven't seen the previous episodes in the playlist, I suggest you do so because we start with really simple mixtures and exercises. And we also learn that stuff like modal interchange can produce a whole ton of chord options like this to really spice up music. And the only reason I stuck this in is because you're never really going to get to that point if you don't start practicing really basic things like mixing Ionian with Lydian first, maybe mixing Ionian with Mixolydian, and so on and so forth, and then learning all the chords of the borrowed parallel minor. Quite honestly, you'll never get to that point until you start doing basic things. First, you need to really know how to use Ionian. I'm not talking about as a keyboard player, just in general, you should really know how to use this scale and an inside and out. Same with Lydian and Mixolydian. You should be able to know how to use Lydian inside and out, and I'm talking about from a composer standpoint. Be able to know how to make progressions and make how this mode work. Not as a keyboard player, this is just a tool. Same with Mixolydian. You need to know how to use it. And I'm just improvising this stuff in because I've been doing this for so long, but it's a skill you actually have to work at. I can't do that for you. And the other thing is sense of timing and knowledge falls into the category of what I was just talking about. For instance, if I just play an A major chord, well, just knowing I could play this pentatonic scale over it with a sense of timing, I know it will work, one chord. Without these two factors, chord changes are pretty much useless. So, let's just get started. We're going to deal with Ionian. You must know how to do this. You must know how to make Lydian. You must know how to make Mixolydian. And we're only going to use basic chords because if you could get basic chord sequences to work, you could get more complex chord sequences to work. You should also write yourself out basic charts like this, showing all the uncommon chords to Ionian, the chords that are different. Like in Lydian, there's the 3 chords that are different. In Mixolydian, we have the C sharp diminished and the E minor and the G. Literally write these things out and circle them or something and have this chart ready. So we're going to do something very simple here. This is the first sequence you could use. You could literally start on the A, go to the E, go to the B, which is part of the Lydian, back to the E, back to the A, to the D, to the G, which is in Mixolydian, to the D, to the A. Why does that work? Because you're going one direction in the circle of fifths and the other direction in the circle of fifths. So there's one progression that uses both chords from both of these modes, just using the circle of fifths. Here's another really simple thing you could do. Make a statement in Ionian, make a statement in Lydian, make a statement in Mixolydian. So in Ionian, maybe I'll choose the 1, the 6, the 5, and the 4. I'm randomly choosing 1, Lydian, 2, 7, 1, Mixolydian, 1, 5, 7. So what you're going to do is just make a some kind of musical statement in one mode, then the next mode, then the next mode. Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian. These are tools that are coming very handy for like film composers and media composers, and also rock and pop guys if you're tired of the same old progressions. So you could take the same thing and start with Lydian, doing the same exact sequence we did before, but started on Lydian instead. Ionian, Mixolydian. Doesn't matter what mode you start in, you could literally make a statement in one, make a statement in the other, make a statement in the other. And these are just the chords we chose initially to make a statement in each mode. See how this works out nice? So let's move on to other tricks you could do. You could literally go from the Lydian 1, the Lydian 7, the Mixolydian 7 producing chromaticism, the Mixolydian 4, the Ionian 1, or whatever mode you want to call it at that point, because we haven't changed anything else. But producing a little bit of chromatic harmony, and I throw in a Mixolydian 5 there. Done in this way does produce a form of chromatic harmony, besides secondary dominant chromatic harmony and tonicizing chords, which I do have a course on, I'll leave in the description. So let's do something else. You could use the chromatic median effect, another form of chromatic harmony, the Ionian 1, 4, Lydian 2, okay, the Mixolydian 7, the Ionian 5. Those are all chromatic medians. So just quickly making it musical. A little bit of chromatic melody. So let's do this. Let's use chromatic medians again. We'll go from Lydian 1, 2, Ionian 4, 5, Mixolydian 7, 1. You notice this produces a almost a similarity chain. Watch. And you could actually loop a sequence like that because I ended on the 5 chord. Produces almost a continuous Lydian effect. So you have these harmonic sequences that start to occur like this. Again, reviewing the chords, sorry. 1, 2, Lydian, Ionian 4, 5, a Mixolydian 7, 1. And then Ionian 5. So you can repeat the sequence. And if you're in a band, for instance, this will give your guitar player a headache trying to solo over something like that. He would have to become hyper aware of what chords are underneath him. You can take the same sequence and use inversions like this. Gives it just a totally different sound to the same sequence. And you notice we're producing a lot of harmonic chains. So let me do this slowly. A, first inversion, B, that common tone, F sharp, D, first inversion, E, common tone B, G, first inversion, A, first inversion, E. So there's a lot of common tone things you could do, tricks like that to hold things over to make it work. So if you watched the previous episode, we used the tritone effect. Lydian 7, Ionian 4. Now let's do the same thing. We'll go down a half step to the Ionian 3, the Mixolydian 7, 6, Ionian 5. So this produces a similarity chain. And as a result, you could do something like this. Especially if you do the same kind of melodic thing. Produces a nice harmonic chain. You could keep repeating this, depending on what style you're into. So as a result of borrowing from these 3 modes, we can actually produce these harmonic chains that are almost exactly the same. Down a half step to a minor chord, down a half step to a minor chord. Slow looking at it again, we have this half step down to a minor chord, tritone, half step down, tritone, half step down, and then to some chord that will lead us back to the 1 chord. Start with basic triads. You could always make these chords more complicated later, like with 7s. And an 11th, And also, depending on your knowledge, extent of your knowledge, you could use modal interchange like this with functional harmony, like secondary dominants like here. Secondary dominant. So you can intermix like modal interchange with functional harmony, which gives you more options. And so we're not going to talk about that right now. I'm just saying if you have that knowledge, you could start messing around with that stuff too. And I have a course on that. I'll leave in the description how to use traditional functional chromatic harmony. So my suggestion for now is to start with these 3 modes, literally write yourself a chart like this and practice messing around. Well, what happens if I move to this chord from this mode, then move to this chord from this mode? Just really experiment with the whole process. Well, you have to eventually break free from reliance on other people having the need to show you what to do. You have to literally just start experimenting. And eventually you do get to a point to where you actually know what works and what doesn't work as well. But actually, I should restate that almost any chord change can work. It just takes a little bit of practice to get it to work musically. And again, we're not doing this to become great keyboardists. I could care less about that. We're doing this to increase our harmonic vocabulary. And keyboard's just a great tool to do that, to practice this stuff on. But I also encourage writing stuff out in notation like this little chart and doing it in all 12 possible roots. See you next episode.